In this video, we're going to talk about how to graph a piecewise function. Make sure you follow along on your notes. We have the same exact problem, so you can follow exactly. Now, I know that I have a piecewise function here because it gives me my function, that's what we're used to seeing, but then it also gives us a domain. These are kind of the list of x values that we want to look at. Now what we're going to do is start with focusing on this first equation here, and we'll just ignore the domain. It gives me f of x, but we know that f of x is the same thing as y. So I'm just going to rewrite that as a y. Now when I'm graphing this equation, I need to start with my y-intercept. So I'll go on my y-axis. It looks like I have a -3, so I'll go down 3 and put a dot. From there, I look at my slope, which in this case, my slope is a +3. You could think of that as 3 over 1. So starting at my y-intercept, I will go up 3 and right 1 and put another dot there. I'll continue this pattern a couple times. Up 3 and right 1, up 3 and right 1. Once you have a couple dots on there and you're feeling confident with the shape of your graph, we can go ahead and draw in our line. So here is my line. Now this is the line, this is very similar to the lines that we are used to looking at, but what makes it a piecewise function is when I start to focus on this domain. Now this domain tells me that I want x's that are less than 2. So what I'm going to do is look at my x-axis, and I'm going to go over right 2. Now, my line is not touching here, but if I follow and just trace up till I get to this point here, that's where my x's are equal to 2. So I'm going to put a dot there. Now, I want where all x's are less than 2, meaning I want where everything is left of 2. So if I'm looking here, I really want just this left portion of my graph. Okay, only this left portion. I don't want this right part that I have here, so I'm going to take my eraser and I'm going to erase that entire part, just keeping the part on the left. At this point, you are done. You have successfully graphed your first piecewise function. All right, we'll look at number 2. Again, I know it's a piecewise because I have my regular equation and then I have my domain. So I'll start with graphing that function. It looks like I have a y-intercept of -5. So on my y-axis, I will go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and put a dot. The next thing I need to do is look at my slope. In this case, your slope is a +1 because there is no y-intercept, or no number in front of your x value. So we will go back to our graph, starting at that y-intercept, go up 1 and right 1, put a dot, up 1, right 1, until you're getting kind of your shape there. I'm going to go in the opposite direction a little bit too. And then we'll go ahead and draw in our graph. All right, now it is time to look at our domain. Our domain in this case says that x is greater than -3. So I need to go on my x-axis over to -3. In this case, it looks like I'm going to have to drop straight down to get to my graph, and I will put my little dot right there. Now, because it's a greater than sign, I want everything that's to the right. So I'm going to kind of just shade in here everything that's to the right of that point. This is the part of the graph that I want to keep. So I'll take my eraser and erase everything that was to the left. Again, that greater than sign told us that we wanted to keep the right-hand side. We are done with those two, so I'm going to scroll down here so we can look at our next two. Now, number 3 and 4 might look a little bit trickier to you because if you look at that domain, it gives us kind of two numbers that we have to focus on. So we'll get to that part in a minute, but whenever you see that kind of tricky looking domain, you're going to start in the same way, where we'll start with just graphing that regular function. So my y-intercept is -6. So on my y-axis, I'll go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and put a dot there. My slope is 3 over 2, so that means I will go up 3 and right 2, up 3, right 2, up 3, right 2, until we're feeling like we have a good idea of what's going on. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. All right, I will connect my dots. Here is my graph. Okay, now whenever you see a domain that has these two numbers, I like these ones. I think these are kind of a little bit easier than the other ones we've looked at with just the one number, because these two numbers are going to be your endpoints of your piecewise function. So the first number I see is a -2. So I'll start on my y-axis. I'll go left 2. I'm going to have to go down to get to my graph, and I'll go ahead and put a dot there. Whoops. Now it looks like I also have something happening at 6. So let's go ahead and find that point. On our x-axis, we'll go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I have to move up to get to my graph, so I'll put my dot there. Now if you look at your domain, it looks like your x is between -2 and 6, which means I want the part of the graph that's between -2 and 6. So I'll go ahead and just kind of shade in that area there. That is the part of the graph that I want to have, meaning I do not want these two endpoints. So I'm going to go ahead and erase everything on the outsides there. I'm left with kind of this weird segment. That is my final answer. Anytime you have a domain that has two numbers like we see here in number 3, your picture, your graph should always end up as a segment, beginning and ending at those two numbers that you see. Now those ones can be kind of tricky, so let's look at another one over here at number 4. Again, I'm going to start with graphing my regular equation. My y-intercept is a +2. So on my y-axis, I will go up 2 and put a dot. Looks like I have a slope of -1/2. So I will go down 1 and right 2, down 1, right 2, down 1, right 2. Feeling good on that side. I'm going to reverse, go up 1, left 2, up 1, left 2, up 1, left 2. That looks pretty good to me. So we'll go ahead and connect our dots. Okay, again, I see a domain with two different numbers here. So I'm going to start with finding -4. So on my x-axis, I will go 1, 2, 3, 4. And it looks like I have to slide up to get to my graph, so I'll put a dot there. My other number I'm looking at is at +2, so I'll go to the right 2. I have to slide up a little bit to get to that dot. Again, my x is between those two numbers, so the part of the graph that I want to look at should be this little section kind of right in here between those dots. That means I don't want anything to the left or right, so I'm going to go ahead and erase. I'm left again with this weird little segment thing, and that right there is my correct answer. At this point, you can go ahead and stop your video. There's a couple more problems on here that I want you guys to try. Check in with your teacher once you are done with those problems, and then we will give you a little bit more practice.